So friends, welcome to this session on climate change education that we'll be diving deep into. We all remember the complete man. How is he or she made? Not with smart dressing per se, but education. Education completes us, both formal and informal. It makes us the complete man. It makes us the learned person. And considering the current times, climate change education makes up for an even better one. But how many stakeholders are doing it? Real time and meaningfully. Projects across school colleges are fine. They inculcate us towards science, towards learning. But deep dive is still something that needs more attention. As they say, in the literary sectors, the long form is missing. We are here to learn about this very deep dive, how are programs taking shape that are bringing about meaningful change. We'll learn from industry stalwarts who have dedicated their life for this very cause. To set the tone for this session and give us the guiding light, I invite Mr. Aditya Pundir, Director Climate Reality Project India and South Asia region, to help us understand the amalgamation of climate action and role of education. His organization is at the forefront of climate change communication and associated action. Sir, please help us understand why is climate education becoming more and more important considering current times. Over to you.
Thank you, Bhavesh. Thank you so much. And I welcome all the panelists for the session today, and also a lot of viewers who may be following us today. And thank you everyone, and wish everyone a happy Ganesh Chaturthi as it's happening in India today. So I'll just share my screen for the talk. So I think no presentation and no discussion on climate change can start without talking about probably the biggest challenge we are facing this century. Whether it is the West Coast, which never had any cyclones, we had Taukte at 160 km/h, and which had Mumbai literally flooding, and the whole of the western coast was flooding. Or another week down, we had Yaris flooding the eastern part of the country. And this year probably we have been hit by one disaster or another. And I was reading the statistics that more than 227 disasters have taken place in this year itself. So that's really climate change on our doorsteps. Now, to begin talking about climate literacy, before that, let's look at the challenge. The challenge we are looking at is that as per Paris Agreement, we have to keep the temperature down to 1.5 degrees. So that is what is desired. So what you are looking at is today an emission of 52 billion tons. That's what's happening today. In 2030, it should be 25 billion. And by 2050, it should be net zero. This is something which we are looking forward to in case we want to stop the climate change and we want to keep it at 1.5 degrees. So this is the challenge we have for climate literacy and education. This is what we have to communicate to people to move forward. Now, coming to the role of education, why we are so focused on education, is that probably three things which are going to play a key role in the coming time is the innovation, technology, and behavioral change. And all the three things which we are talking about, innovation, technology, and behavioral change, all three of them are born in the universities, campuses, schools, where young minds are there. They're thinking about the problem in a different way and trying to come out with solutions. So this is the key. And what we are trying to do now as a global community for climate is we are trying to explain to the people, because they don't understand this concept. I've tried to put it in a very simple two graphs: how climate is impacting the humans and how humans are impacting the climate. Now, this relationship, if we can understand how the climate is impacting humans and humans are impacting the climate, this is what the thing we are trying to do through when we are talking about climate literacy. We're talking about the cause behavior reaction which is happening. And educators can here play a very important role. The educating community can talk about the science, the impact, the solutions. And now also I'm talking about disaster adaptation, because initially we were thinking that climate change is going to happen probably in the next 30, 40 years. And by that time, probably we will be able to take control. But now things are happening so fast that the disaster adaptation is also should be now part of the gamut which the educators do. Now coming to, like yesterday, Kartikeya Sarabhai was saying, and everybody was talking about community mobilization. Now, community mobilization, I think educators are one of the best people to do this community mobilization, because they have a huge group of students, friends, family, professional contacts, community. Like if you, especially if you go outside these metros, you go to villages and you go to smaller towns, the educators are the people whom really people flock to when they want new ideas, they want to know what is happening. So I think educators can play a big role, and they can actually, through the education, climate literacy, take the thing forwards the way we are talking about, probably from staff to students to parents to community. So this is the way forward we can bring a movement, and like we can, as just now Mr. Joshi was talking in the plenary, that we have to start a movement where everybody has to be integrated. And then coming to the campus itself, it will be beneficial if we go for climate literacy in the education field, because you will be saving in terms of water, energy, better biodiversity, better quality of life for the students inside the schools. Another challenge which I feel in moving forward in climate literacy, especially in the South Asia region, I feel is that this region is not homogeneous like you have in North America or in Europe, where a couple of languages are common. Here we have regional languages. India itself has recognized 25 languages, and then you have dialects. So there's a need for climate literacy to happen in the language of people, because this is a problem which people have to understand. The community has to understand. And this can only happen if it is done in the regional language, and it is done in a language they can understand. And then climate literacy has to be continuous and dynamic process. We cannot write textbooks about it and then forget about it. Now our job is done. This is a continuously evolving line, because the environment is changing. The way we are reacting with the environment, every day new challenges are coming, and new inventions, new problems sometimes. So it's a continuous and a dynamic process which is going to happen. My own organization, Climate Reality Project, has been trying to address this through two programs, Teachers Training Program and the Green Campus Program, through which we are trying to capture these things and trying to move around with the community to move things forward. Now, let me a little bit talk about the youth part of it. The youth is again going to play a huge role in the coming time, because not only that they are the people who will inherit the planet, they will see all the consequences of climate change, but also because the youth are the people who will be able to mobilize. Like you just imagine, one Greta Thunberg has literally thrown most of the politicians around the world off their seat. So this is the power of youth. And I think in the coming times, as more and more youth understands that this is the problem they're going to face in a real time, they're going to take action. I'll just give you an example of one of a persons I was working with. He was a 16-year-old boy, and we were trying to create awareness around the World Water Day about 3-4 years back. And this 16-year-old went around the whole state of Karnataka and even got the chief minister on road parading and talking about water literacy. So this is the power of a youth, which if properly channelized can take forward. And like, of course, most of the schools today these days are participating in a lot of events. And so idea is doing something. We have to tell the students to do something. Textbooks are fine, everything is fine, but let's involve them in activities. Let's involve them in activities. The climate literacy should have both the elements. It should have the understanding about what the issue is, the problems are, and then of course, how they can be used. And of course, the youth will be looking forward to his green jobs. They'll be looking for the ways they can earn their living, how they can spend their next 40, 60 or 70 years ahead on the planet. So they need the proper employment, they need engagements. And for this, I think there's a huge opportunities coming today, whether it's fields of energy, efficiency, water management, waste, food. So we have to, in climate literacy, also try to see if we can make the youth aware in the coming times about the potential which they have, where they can really go forward to. Like, there's no point in teaching the youth about the future and then not giving them an option. Of course, they will look for solutions, but there's a good idea if we can also help them, nudge them to show them some pathways that probably this is where probably you can go. And of course, there were a lot of money, like energy. If you go battery storage, if you have a good idea, $1 million is the starting price. Any organization will offer you to work on it. So there's a lot of money, there's a lot of opportunities, and that's good for the planet also. And I'll just quickly end my thing by, because I know there people would be waiting for the panelists to take over, that I think this is the challenge for climate literacy, which famous biologist Edward Wilson has talked about, that this is how, because we are going to have, how do we raise the standard of living of people? How do we get people a decent living, get people out of poverty, remove hunger, give them education, give them a decent place to live and thrive, and also see to it that what is surrounding us, like our biodiversity, what our natural and of course our like atmosphere also we are affecting, everything remains pristine and it's taken care of. So thank you very much. Enjoy this session.
I am requesting to Bhavesh ji that our parallel session, plenary session is still going on. So we have a sufficient time to talk in our session. So instead of completing
fine. We got it.
Yeah,
we got it. Thank you, Mr. Shiv. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Aditya ji, for this deep dive. No more words to re-emphasize on climate education, making it more mainstream, making it more available to everyone in their language. As you rightly said, the last man standing is the one who is getting affected the most. Let's try to learn from other people. Now, we move to a panel discussion to learn from practitioners and respective propagators from their organizations for which they have been working on climate change education to make it mainstream for a long time now. Well, before we begin, some housekeeping rules. Please restrict to your timelines. We'll press a small bell 30 seconds before. Please try to conclude in time so that we all are able to move further. In this panel, we are joined by Ms. Neha, Fellow and Area Convener, Environment Education and Awareness from TERI. Neha is an education and sustainability development practitioner with a master's in environment management and has more than 18 years of experience working in this domain. We also have Ms. Rekha Lala, who is a CII certified expert in climate change and sustainability. She has been an educator for over 2 decades. She used to head TERI Prakriti School in Gurgaon as well. Next, in this panel, we have Ms. Indrajit Kaur Sandhu, Principal SD Vidya School, Ambala. Indranjit, sorry ma'am, sorry I mispronounced it. Indranjit Kaur Sandhu. She also brings over 2 decades of progressive hands-on experience as an administrator at K2 level. She has worked in city schools as well as in rural locations, thus adapting administrative and teaching styles to suit the need of diverse groups of children, parents, and staff members. Last but not the least, we have Ms. Srishti Singh, who is Program Coordinator, Climate Change, Center for Environment Education. She too brings in a decade of experience in working with subnational, national, and international level programs comprising policy research, multi-stakeholder consultation, and education material development in the sphere of climate change education. We welcome you all. I straight away put the first question to you. There would be an audience poll as well coming in between for audience to respond. So please make time available for audience to respond to them. Thank you so very much for this details. And now we dive deep straight to the questions. My first question to this esteemed panel is, what are the various approaches CEE has adopted for climate change education? We look forward to have answers from all of your organizations. So please give me time to reach out to all of you. Let's start with CEE, please. Srishti.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Bhavesh, and thank you to other organizers for having me for the session. So starting, not taking much time, and starting with the approaches which CE follows for climate change education. I would say most of the things are in line with the Article 6 of the UNFCCC, which is also called as Action for Climate Empowerment, or ACE. So this ACE has 6 different elements which covers formal education, training, public awareness, participation, information, access to information, and cooperation. So if you see at the policy level also, and we as an organization also are not restricted to the formal settings only when it comes to climate change education, although most of the people think of it as in a very formal sort of an education. But as Aditya sir also mentioned, we have to move towards the community mobilization in order to get them educated, and we could start with any of the target groups which he already mentioned. So we also have adopted various mechanisms that are targeted towards a range of stakeholders, and with the main idea of how climate change leads to action, so that it is not restricted to any of the settings, but it also leads to somehow action. And it could be community mobilization, it could be a technology, it could be resilience building, it could be disaster adaptation, anything. In terms of formal education, CE creates handbooks for teachers and students, so that climate change and various cross-cutting areas could be integrated within their school activities. And such handbooks and resources are mostly disseminated as well as implemented through our Paryavaran Mitra network, which is a network of about 2 lakh schools all over India. We also sort of develop courses and prepare curriculum for university level students and colleges, and in partnership with the universities as well. So I mean, a decade ago we had developed a course, a master level course on climate change and impacts management, which is still being running at the Gujarat University. And we had developed the center initially, and then it went into the course formulation and how, and the first 2 batches were also were facilitated by the by the CE staff itself. Along with the courses within the formal education settings, we also developed training modules as part of our educational campaigns, which are targeted towards youth and communities from coastal, rural, and urban settings. And they are mostly targeted towards providing conceptual clarity on climate change and related terminologies, and also telling them about impacts that stakeholder group is going to have. So for example, we conducted a climate literacy and marine litter management campaign along the east coast of India. It was in partnership with GIZ, and we educated communities on climate change and created awareness also with marine litter, and developed the interlinkages also for help them build their own resilience. And through this campaign, we not only reached out to 3 lakh people along the East Coast, but also built the capacity of the local communities for addressing the climate challenges through developing localized plans also as well. For youth, we have been offering lecture series and certificate courses, which were supposed to have, which are designed to be an in-person activity. And it was being done prior to COVID, and which are not currently on, but we are trying to develop them into an online course through our CE Academy. The one with climate change is to be announced very soon in the 3rd week of November. So we look forward to more participation, but that is how we have been working with youth. We have also done a lot of work on public awareness and participation. And one of the largest was the Science Express Climate Action Special, which was a climate change exhibition mounted on a train. And the train had 8 coaches with exhibits, interactives, and models that explained the different concepts of climate change, including the science, policy, what is India's stake, what are the different social and economical impacts. Those were the models, and those were presented in the form of models and different interactives, as I mentioned. It was open to general public.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Srishti. I think the way you are working with the universities, with the East Coast, 3 lakh people getting affected and this train journey, I think it needs for a more deep dive, and probably our audience would also be interested in finding links. So please post the links of your programs and things. With this, we move to Terry. Ma'am, please help us understand how you are taking things forward.
Thank you, Bhavesh. Thank you for having me during the session to discuss about how TERI is taking about the climate change. As we all know that TERI is one of the biggest think tanks who have been working in the field of climate change research for decades now. The environment education and awareness area of TERI has been instrumental in doing the climate change education literacy program through their students, youth, and a lot of other community-based initiatives. The idea of doing this climate change education programs are based on the thematic, the research of that TERI has been doing in the fields of energy, water, waste, forest and biodiversity. So we believe in interlinking of the different disciplines, and that's what forms the basis of our project we have been doing. So that we can promote the interdisciplinary learning. What kind of a distinct pedagogy we adopt is majorly the green curricula, which has been devised on the basis of the gaps that has been there in the formal curricula. Whichever board, whichever state we are working, we try and identify the gaps and try and fulfill through our non-formal education. We reach out to the students and the educators, and through them, we try and build their capacity through a lot of uh, modules, learning programs, hands-on activities, so as to build their capacities on the issues, help them find out, we motivate them to find out their own creative and innovative solutions to the problems they are facing at local level. So their capacity can help in building the solutions for the community, build the community awareness, mobilize the communities so that we can find a long-term behavioral change in the society. The idea behind is to create a informed group of citizens who later can take the call, not only today, but later when they are there, they are responsible, and they are working, they are environmental conscious, they are taking sustainable initiatives. So the Environment Education and Awareness Group has been addressing various projects, addressing the students across pan-India and globally through projects which are targeting the students from the age group of 10 onwards. So we have different categories of projects which we are doing, like the Green School Project, which we are doing in the remote locations of Jharkhand and Odisha. We are launching, we have launched a lot of projects like marine data program, which will be addressing the schools in Kerala, Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Uttar Pradesh. We have Clean Air Project, which is running in the Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra, talking about air pollution issues. More. Similarly, we are reaching out to the youth, the students who are in the colleges, so as to build the capacity, their voice can be heard. The idea is, if we give the youth an opportunity to come out and speak at different international platforms so that their voices is heard, and we can understand what exactly is they are expecting. This not only help the policymakers understand what is the future citizen of India wants, but also at the same time make the youth understand that yes, what is happening and where are we heading. So keeping all this in mind, we plan our initiatives, and also, yes, TERI works in different regional languages as per the requirement of that particular area. So our initiative has always been that interlinking the themes and addressing, making the capacity, building the capacities of the students, youth, and the community to address their local issues themselves so that they can be the leaders of tomorrow.
Great insights there, Nehaji. In fact, it's the need of the hour when we speak of industry academia gap and the way TERI has been filling it up. Obviously, you have been working over decades in terms of helping the industry understand their water efficiency, their energy efficiency, and other requirements, how to move ahead on that pillar, and that to imbibing with the student community. I think that's really one of the great ways to make it possible. And then, as you have reached out to the interiors, I think it requires a lot of respect onto that part. Please share your website and other details as well with the audience so that they too can learn what you people are doing. Rekha ji, please help us understand how your organization is taking these things forward.
Thank you, Bhavesh. Good evening, everyone. So we at Climate Project, without wasting any time, I thought I'll just jump to the question. So we at Climate Project Foundation have initiatives like Teachers Training Program in English, Hindi, Marathi, and Green Campus Program. That is an audit-based program. So youth-based programs also we have for schools and colleges around almost all the states of India now we have covered. We have trained almost 8,000 teachers on climate change, and around 100 schools under the Green Campus program. They are doing audit of what kind of resources they are consuming, what they need to do, and we handhold them. When even during pandemic, we have been handholding them, talking to them, all the teachers. I think that was a time when we were reaching to the parents as well, because most of the students were there at home, and so parents also joined in. So we believe school is a place where the students spend at least 60% of their lifetime. So it should be a green space for all the teachers and students. So if we can teach a school community how to inculcate the green practices, these things are taken forward by the students to their homes. And later the whole community, we talk about community, becomes a green. The parent also joins in these green initiatives. We also have content in 4 languages: Hindi, English, Marathi, Odia. We have been constantly, I think, working, updating our knowledge and how to pass this in different languages. Right now, we are working on 4 languages. We have posters, handbook, PowerPoint, books on SDGs. All they can, I think teachers can simply go to their our website and download these things. We had summer camps for the students. And they were given training, and we also have training modules for teachers on waste, water, energy, and biodiversity. So we at Climate Reality Project had online classes. Yes, classes for the teachers, which is very different, for training on various topics like climate change, sustainability, waste, water, energy, biodiversity, and air. For students, we had the summer camp, a month-long program wherein the students which joined us from the 50 different schools, and we had a cap. Sorry, we couldn't allow all the students to come in from all one school. So it was a cap of 2 or 3 students only joining in from each school. So they learned the art of storytelling in the form of story writing, making films on climate. Reality heroes also discussed the challenges on climate change and their effort to restore the ecosystem and environment. So the students have made beautiful films and written nice stories, which they were awarded also. So after long questioning, a lot of questioning on the online modules, the students created beautiful films, which we have, I think, awarded also by us, but we are going to showcase those films also on our site.
Great. So it's quite interesting when you say that not only students, but their parents also joined in for these green sessions when you were taking it. Quite impressive. We'll be more than happy to learn about these initiatives. Our audience definitely needs to know more about them. Please share the links, whatever you people are doing. Great insights out there. Now we move to more practical aspect of it. Let's hear from the principal as to how difficult it has been. Madam Sandhu, please help us understand. Ground implementation of green measures have been difficult to achieve during these COVID times. Please let us know how have institutes been able to achieve this challenge. Over to you, Ma'am Sandhu.
Thank you, Bhavesh. And thank you, Rekha ji, for first of all making us join the Green Campus program. And we are so lucky to be part of it. And with the pandemic setting in, it was actually, what all we had learned as part of the program, we got the opportunity to implement it. We had done the base work earlier, but with the setting in of the pandemic, like Mr. Aditya said, we need technology to bring in the behavior change, and technology with behavior change, you need a lot of innovation. So at our school, at the ST Vidya school, we brought in a lot of innovation, and innovation was brought in by a number of things, like, we began promoting our children, motivating our children to actually make their homes polythene-free zones. Like the school we had already made, but we wanted their homes to be made polythene-free, absolutely. And we wanted them to look around, see what they could reuse and reduce the use, and then recycle, make a list of all the things that they could, reuse and reduce and recycle. And gradually we came up with this beautiful idea of children making small little, bags, which had smaller bags inside. So we motivated the children to gift these bags to all members of their house so that they could replicate it for a polythene bag. They could carry it in their purses, and whenever the need arose, they could, just pull out the bigger bag rolled inside and use it. So, I was carrying this bag. If I can show you all the bag. So we have this beautiful bag which the children actually are now using as a solution, because children, when we stop them, or we kind of inhibit certain things, we really need to come up with solutions. So likewise, we gave them this beautiful project of growing cotton in plants in the house. So the cotton plant was grown in their houses on the rooftop gardens. Like in school, we had a rooftop garden. So gradually we had helped the children come up with rooftop gardens at home, where they were motivated to grow vegetables, and they were motivated to sell these vegetables to their parents, so that the parents had not the need to go to the markets. They could, and it was meaningfully engaging the children in those activities. And the children were motivated to eat healthy, eat, the plant-based diet. So it was a kind of a project where children were so beautifully earning while they were learning. They were engaged, and they were becoming, entrepreneurs at that point of time. And then we motivated them to grow cotton. And from the cotton, gradually in December, we would be having the cotton crop coming in. So the children would be plucking the cotton pods and sending those bags to the school. In the school, we have installed solar charkhas. We are the first school in the entire country to come up with this project, Farm to Uniform, whereby we would be, we've installed solar charkhas. We would be making, a fiber, and from the fiber, we would be creating, our students would be creating the fabric. The fabric would be colored, dyed in school, and thereafter designed by the students. Then the uniforms. So we are bringing in the khadi culture in school, and the children will be creating their own uniforms. They would be stitching their own uniforms. And that's when the value will set in, that when they understand how difficult it is to make a small piece of garment, they would not throw away their clothes for nothing. They would not buy, too much of clothes from the market, so that the value of how difficult is it for a single garment to reach their houses. So the kind of hands-on experience that we are giving to our children, this is motivating them to actually think on a green campus house. We are teaching them a lot of ways where they can utilize their compost, their waste, and turn it into compost in these small compost bins. In school, we have taught them how to not throw away the leaf fall in the school, and how not to burn it, use it and in making the compost. And all the plants that they're growing at home on their rooftop gardens, the entire compost earlier was provided by the school, because the school has a lot of greenery and a lot of leaf fall. So we are utilizing every leaf that's falling and turning it into compost, and organic totally, no pesticides, no fertilizers. We are motivating children to creating their own enzymes, bioenzymes, using vinegar for the cleaning purposes, baking soda for cleaning purposes. So we are bringing actually hands-on experiences for the children. We are teaching the children how to experience the project and motivate their their family members as well as neighbors. So that's what we are doing. Thank you.
Ma'am, that's not what you are doing. That's a whole world you are doing, I would like to admit. So
Thank you.
really commendable things. And I again say that our audience would definitely like to know more about it. In case there is a Facebook page, there is any blog post that your students are writing on, do share it with our audience out here. And definitely our other program managers would also be interested in the kind of things that you are speaking of, say plastic-free homes, moving on to waste management, then those kitchen gardens, and this very aspect of solar chalka. I think it needs more and more replication in times to come. More power to your efforts, ma'am. So with this, we move to the next part of our discussion, where I would like to ask, there used to be a pre-COVID era, and then we'll have a post-COVID era, when schools would be open and we'll be joining them as we used to. Please help us understand, with respect to your programs, how easy and difficult it has been with respect to delivery, with respect to execution, and the response coming from teachers and the community as a whole. As ma'am have shared, she has already inspired things at her school. Rekha ji, Neha, Srishti, within your program domains, how easy or difficult it has been as far as pre and post-COVID eras are concerned? Anyone may start. Neha, please.
Bhavesh, yes, we all understand that the COVID was like a challenge which came up to all of us, and we were like, okay, the students were at home. The country came to an halt. But I would say that at TERI, with the education project, they all continued unabated through online and social media platform, and they gained momentum in the months that followed. Because the COVID was happening, that every month we were like having a lockdown getting increased. To quote with you with an example of the Green School project, the project used this entire pandemic as an opportunity to provide students with plethora of educational informations and opportunities to make use of their time in constructive manner by making environmental friendly products at the starting, so that they can undertake activities for conserving the planet. And then slowly and steadily, we started kind of bombarding them with a lot of self-learning series that was provided with a lot of information on environmental issues through videos, some facts and figures, interesting evidences to protect environment. These, like to quote you some examples, like we found out creative ways to teach students about biodiversity, about waste, about energy, because the idea was like students were, and somehow the nature was teaching them, like when everything is shut, how the nature is reviving. And at the same time, we were teaching them how to protect that at that moment and how to continue with that. So a lot of opportunities were provided, and we became proactive. Rather, I would say that was the time we found that, okay, when we go on ground, then we are like kind of limited, okay, can't reach out to all the students at the same time, but digital world give you an opportunity to interact with the n number of students at the same time from pan India, so that it's a platform for students to not only interact with the like-minded student, but also share their knowledge with each other, be a peer educators, share their learnings across that, what are the local issues they faced, how they are addressing. So that become a very creative things. So the students not only kind of become a peer educators this time and take the knowledge forward, but we were amazed that we were able to drive it and like expand our outreach, increase the target groups. The project I was mentioning, that we were initially thinking of reaching out to the communities, something like in Lakh and So, because it is in the remote locations. We were working with the tribal zones, students from the effective ecosystem. So, but to our surprise, keeping all the mandates in mind, we were able to reach out to more than 2 lakh community members. The drive, the way we were able to kind of motivate the panchayats, and how it is like they spread the message across on the sustainability.
So I think the pandemic,
Yeah, I'm
so
talking about
online
the
has
during
been a
pandemic
boon
only.
for you. I
Yeah,
think you have been able
I am talking about the pandemic
to.
era only. So the digital world, how we were
Great.
able
So
to get. Yeah.
Rekha, please help us understand. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, and how you are formulating in a post-COVID world.
So thank you, Bhavesh. So I think COVID, as Neha is saying, COVID taught us to go online. But I think thanks for a few printouts, which helped at trees. I think most of the offices, colleges, schools, they learned how to survive online. I think there was no option. We learned the new methods to come online. We used to also have physical presentation, discussion, meeting with teachers. Now we have started doing it in online mode. So we also learned, schools also learned, colleges also learned, and community also learned to come online. So the audit of the green campus had slowed down, but we had many schools signing in for online workshops in large number. Even the colleges also came in. So that was a difference between pre-COVID and post-COVID. Students from schools, colleges came to us to learn and be connected to the environment and climate change. So we tried to have talks, workshops, online engagements for all the students and teachers. So I'll give you one example of our program. In our summer program, which we had for a whole month, the students used to wait all Sundays to listen to the stories of our climate reality heroes. We used to have, I think, filmmakers also to teach students how to make film online. We had teachers also teaching students how to write a story. So that was a summer program. Then we have youth-based program as well. We had youth program wherein they clean the water bodies around them, and with the help of course, the community. They have done water harvesting, waste segregation with the help of community, because the RWA is there. So everybody wants to join in with, if somebody has taken a little initiative. So the whole community come forward.
Thanks,
to be a
Rekha.
part of.
So I think it has been a boon on your part as well. Srishti, before coming to you, there is an audience poll out here. I request all the audience who have joined in to please log into slido.com. That's the hashtag to go to this specific one. And then we can have an answer as to how students have been involved in this learning process. In case you are a student, we look forward to your views, your kind of learning that has played during the pandemic. Please remove it. Host will continue with our talks. So Srishti, please go ahead. How has been your kind of experience?
Yes, so as shared by the other panelists, the world is running on virtual platforms, and we as educators, facilitators are not really very happy about it. I mean, the various approaches which were shared earlier have been now brought down to online education due to the pandemic situations. So it's hard and it's easy also in some ways. I would like to share both the experiences with you. With taking an example from an online education campaign with the youth and teachers under the banner of the Tide Turners Challenge, which was mostly focused on single-use plastics and its interlinkages to climate change. So the entire campaign and the training activities, everything had to run via e-platform, both in the year 2020 and 2021. Although we received a great engagement with 1.2 lakh individuals joining via CE to the challenge, but we had a mixed experience, as I said. On one hand, we were able to conduct educational activities all over the country, sitting at one place. But we could not reach out to, remote educational institutions much, especially during 2020. But because we were figuring out what mechanisms could be developed to reach out to those institutions as well. This year, we were able to overcome this challenge through, working with the rural schools via the MOEACC Eco Clubs. However, there were other challenges, for instance, which Aditya sir also mentioned, the language barrier. We are sitting at one place and we were conducting a lot of trainings, but the language barriers kept coming our way because these remote schools were, were using different languages to, offer education. And also there was a technology savviness also was very less in amongst the teachers. Although the resources were developed in 9 different languages, the trainings were also conducted in multiple languages, but the e-platform was entirely in English. So that was the challenge which we were facing, and we were trying to overcome that also. And in terms of outreach, we still feel we would have been able to educate more youth from coastal areas, maybe say Northeast, if we would have not been doing it online.
So great, Srishti. I think yes. With the kind of programs that our other partners are learning, like Rekha shared that they have been doing works in regional languages as well. So I think we need to collaborate more, share resources with each other, and see how these things can percolate further in a more faster manner. I understand in case we are in the cityscape, we are in a urban land area, we have broadbands, we have devices available to help us out. In a remote setting, this becomes really difficult. So moving ahead, very quickly, I ask 3 says from all of you, including Madam Sandhu. Net zero is approaching by 2030. Organizations are doing their part. Data centers, those Googles of the world are speaking ongoing carbon responsible in their own way. How is our educational time frame? How is our educational mainframe getting prepared for it? Please answer very quickly, just 3 points each. Rekha ji, you want to start? 3 quick points.
So I would, thank you, Bhavesh. I would like to bring into account, that is why I think our government has started the NEP, New Education Policy of 2020, which is in line with Goal 4 of United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, that is SDG, which is clearly believes in equal access to education is the base of sustainable development. So NEP will strengthen all the citizens to the country by enhancing their skills and knowledge. So taking into account, I think we have designed our Green Campus program. That is an apt in learning of SDGs, and clearly it is based on clean energy, managing waste, using eco-friendly commuting practices, and increasing the green cover.
Great, great. Thank you so very much for this quick one. Sandhu ma'am, please.
I feel, as Mr. Aditya had rightly said, that we need to catch our children, when they have tender minds, catch them young and start motivating them right from there. So from the staff to the students and students to the parents and parents to the community, that's the only way forward. And as the pandemic has ushered e-learning and e-learning has ushered evolution and change, I think we should take it on a very positive note, use social media to reach out to maximum people, let our children research, upload videos, go ahead, come up with their artwork, and actually reach out to people who in their normal times do not notice what needs to be done in these times. So I think that's going to be the way forward. Thank you.
Great. Neha ji, your view.
Yeah, Bhavesh, I feel that the momentum that we have kind of gained due to COVID by going online and involving not only the students, youth, but also the parents directly. So that should continue and try and reach out. And as NEP says, that regional languages. Yes, that has to be done. Whatever we are developing, try and convert it to the regional languages so that we can reach out to the masses across India and globally, so as to just share the knowledge. That's the thing that is required, the need of the hour. The more we share, more we talk about, the more the people will be aware about the issue.
Great, great, great. Srishti.
Yeah, I think I'll agree to the other panelists that the momentum which we have gained, although with many challenges earlier, you should be continuing with the momentum. But although trying to evolve our modules and models and even approaches which we have developed for the pre-COVID era needs to be evolving, and we need to have some innovations when we are conducting trainings and even the educational programs, and even with teachers, since they are also coming up with innovative methodologies to teach the children on whatever relevant topics they are teaching. So I think we need to, as part of the post-COVID era, we need to evolve our mechanism so that we could reach out to more and more people and enhance climate change education as much as we can.
Great. It's great. It's so nice to have all people converging on a single idea. That's quite a rarity in present day panel discussions. Thank you so very much. So we all agree that national education policy, in fact, is one right direction, one right step in that endeavor, so as to bring a blended learning, how to make online, offline, and practical aspect of it, the modeled aspect of it. You people have been doing it for the last 20 years, 10 years, so to say, and national education policy recognizes this effort that we need to make it mainstream. Climate education has been emphasized at national education policy almost at the highest number of times. there could be no better times in terms of its implementation. We are hopeful, we are moving in the right direction. With this, we conclude the panel, and there is an important, or rather, I would say a very nice thing that has happened. In 2019, when we were departing at IECSC 2019, we promised for a more international collaboration and bridge this have not debate across the global north and global south. I'm really happy and delighted to share that subject to climate, an international, free to all educational resource has been formulated that is providing presentation, white papers, informative documents on specific subjects of climate change education made available to one and all. To enlighten on this, I invite Mr. Rituraj Kukan, who is an environmental writer, founder of Indigenous Peoples Climate Justice Forum, and serves as National Coordinator Biodiversity at Climate Reality India. Sir, all yours.
Thank you, Bhavesh. It's been such a learning experience to listen to the esteemed panelists with so many years of experience. And I'll start as soon as you let me know if the slides are visible.
Please go ahead, all visible, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And as you said, something that really developed during the COVID months from last year. And this is Subject to Climate, which is basically a website where we have all the resources that could possibly be required for integrating climate change education with all the subjects that are being taught in various schools. We did some background research, and these points that you see here emerge as the topmost reasons of why climate change is not as widely taught in schools and why it is not a part of the curriculum. And of course, some of these may be suitable for you. Some of you may identify with this, some of you may not, but these turned out to be on top of the research. However, we did try to address this, and so to make teachers the central of this ripple effect where we change the world by changing our respective communities. Of course, we are all doing that, but just to put things in perspective, this is really our mission. The benefits of Subject to Climate are that these are all free and they will always remain free forever. These are all credible sources, verified by scientists, reviewed by a global panel of teachers. They are very easily navigable, and I have a navigation video, but I'm not going to play that here. And it really saves time because you can find all of them straight away. And there are, as Bhavesh put, there are lesson plans, there are presentations, there are other exercises, and all of you are most welcome to rate and review them, provide your feedback. You can visit the website. There are videos that walks you through the website. And just yesterday, I was in a school called Royal Global School, and all the teachers had a great time going through all the resources on their own, and they could find out assessment things that they discovered as teachers, so many things that I could not see for myself. So please take a moment to browse through the website. And of course, social media is a great way to spread this good, because these are free and so specific to climate change. I think they will be useful for all teachers all around the world. And most importantly, my final slide is that all the teachers who think that there are something missing here, who want to contribute some kind of lesson plans with their years of experience, are most welcome to do that. You only need to send an email to info@subjecttoclimate.org. And you're welcome to join as part of the teacher task force. So you can be a change maker too, being part of Subject to Climate, and please feel free to share these resources. And if any of you have any questions, I'm happy to take that. Thank you, Bhavesh.
Great work, Rituraj. We talk a lot, but the implementation part is somewhat that needs more emphasis, and you have showed it with Subject to Climate. Audience, please feel free to use these resources. This was just an idea. and when implementation takes shape, free to all, available to all across the platforms, I think it deserves more power. Great effort, Rituraj and team. So with this, I think we conclude the panel. Time to move back. Have we got responses to the poll questions out there? Quickly. I think they are building upon. Meanwhile, just let me thank you all the speakers, Aditya ji, Neha ji, Rekha ji, Madam Sandhu, Srishti ji. You have been and learned, I would say, plethora of educationists out there, made us dive deep on the subject. Thank you so very much. Success to any programs come with inundated effort from visible and invisible faces. In this case, a good number of actors are behind the scenes. Thank you, Kavya, Archana, Dr. Shiv, Rupesh, Arpit, Dr. Madhavi, Sheetal, Aradhana, and Gitika, without whom it won't have been possible. Thank you so very much for joining us for this panel. I think we are done. In fact, there is a question, I think, if anybody wants to answer that just before we move out of it. How students can be involved in learning climate change and getting their attention on this crucial issue? Anybody who wants to answer it very quickly. How can students be involved in learning climate change and getting their attentions on this crucial issue? In case we have time, else we go to the plenary.
I think children have to talk about it, collaborate, discuss, and be conscious of the changes that are happening around them, and then deliberate on it. Because unless we make them aware and make them conscious, we will not be able to move forward. So students have to be made aware of it.
Okay. Great words of wisdom out there. And I think with this, we can conclude the session. Mr. Shiv?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Conclude the session.
Okay. Thank you so very much, everyone, for joining us. Have a great day ahead. See you at the plenary.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you.